Assalamu alaikum, my students. Good morning. This is me, Dr.هاني الحسني, and that's the course of Semantics. Today we are going to talk about Chapter 8, Girce's Theory of Implicature. So, in general, when we realize the word theory, it means there is rules, or there are some rules ready fit for that implicature, and here we have to discuss these concepts in details. So fine, let's move to the next slide to look at what is the introduction. And in introduction, Girce wasn't only the first scholar to describe characteristics, features of implicature. So there are previous linguists who discuss the semantics in general and not in detail. And in that point, some researchers they did something previously like Chomsky, but Girce has a series at Harvard University in 1967 where he laid out this analysis. So what happened to that context of implicature? He said that why we didn't discuss the intention of speakers and to discuss whether they are relevant or they change the topic for their own interest or what. And here, that's how they describe him, triggered an explosion of interest in and research about the topic of implicature. It is sometimes cited as the birth of pragmatics as a separate field of study. So before Girce, they thought that pragmatics belonged to semantics and that's it. When Girce raised up at Harvard University, a lot of scholars started to change their mentality and say, okay, pragmatics is a separate field and we have to deal with it as a new science away from semantics. Okay, well, the next slide here we have another analysis of sometimes we mean more than we say. And that's how many people around the world can deal with it. Like sometimes we mention a few words and these few words means a lot, and sometimes we say a lot and we just mean few sentences out of the conversation. So despite the importance of being able to communicate effectively and despite the frequency in which we attempt to do so, we often make mistakes when we try to convey information to others. And here the meaning, we often make mistakes when we try to convey information to others. Sometimes we say something and the others will think about another point. We are not here in case of forcing others to understand us. Hence, we cannot force anybody. Some of these mistakes are relatively minor and others will affect the whole communication slightly or mainly. And while other mistakes are relatively major and lead to serious misunderstandings. And in that context, how we need to divide the conversation based on that kind of mistakes or that kind of separation or that kind of unrelevant to the context. That's how Girce think about the maxim. It means the rules of conversation, the maxims of conversation that you can use, which help you to avoid this mistake in conversation. So you have a lot of mistakes, but with these kind of pillars, you can think again about how to modify and control the way of your speaking, the way of your structure for the sentence. And last, we will talk about cooperative principle, which is a kind of background assumption. Sometimes we assume something, and which is what is necessary in order to make rational conversation possible, which is not for the speaker to follow the principle slavishly, but for speaker and hearer to share common awareness that it exists. So we are here dealing with the common awareness, and also we need to think about background assumption. So the assumption, we will look at the speaker and the hearer or the listener at the same time, because we are looking for the rational conversation, for something logical, for something can be understood. That's what we call cooperative principle. So let's move to the next one. We have here conversational implicatures, and within that we need to think about the simple conversation, like we have here from the book. I get the example: Arthur, can you tell me where the post office is? So there is a conversation between Arthur and Bill, and that's a general question from Arthur to Bill, and he said, where is the post office? It's a very simple question. So Bill replied, I'm stranger here myself. So he said that he's stranger. So he didn't say the logical response that we are expecting. If I say, can you tell me where the post office is? I can say yes, follow me, or no, I have no idea. So he said here, I'm stranger. So kind of different strategy to respond. So what we call it here. So Arthur request for direction, Bill's statement clearly intended to mean no. So Bill said a statement, and this statement we indirectly understood that he didn't know. But the sentence semantic content, Bill's statement doesn't contain or entail this intended meaning. It means he didn't say the word I cannot or no, I have no idea. Number two, I have just moved to this town. So far, I'm finding it's pretty tedious. I haven't met a single person who is willing to talk about anything except next week's local elections. So Arthur here become very friendly. He's looking for maybe a partner, or he is trying to attract attention of Bill, but Bill's still the same one, and he said, I'm stranger here. And for the example, it illustrates the following characteristics. What are the following characteristics? Implicature is different from literal sentence meaning. Bryce terms, he said, Bill, he has no, he didn't show the intention officially, as we realize in different statements, but here he used another way to expose or to tell others what he is. And at the same time, this answer can tell others, like Arthur, that Bill is a stranger and he has no idea about anything here. Number two, nevertheless, the speaker intends for hearer to understand both sentence meaning and the implicature for the hearer to be aware that speaker intend that. It means Arthur, he is looking just for direction. He didn't look for anything else. That's a way for him. And in number two, number one, he just looked for direction. Number two, he's looking for friendly one. He said, I just moved to this town. That's mean he's looking for a company, but the other, who's Bill, he just rejected his offer. Conversation implicature are context dependent. It means we always focus on the context. We are not thinking from our imagination. Just we think about the uh, possible intentions or the possible answer instead of the clear statement. Conversational implicatures are often unmistakable. It means when we think about the exact answer that he mentioned, why he said this, and what's the meaning behind it, based on our thought and what we guess. So it's unmistakable. That's the characteristics of conversational implicature. Slide number 5 here. Grice's maxim or maxims of conversation. We have here the conversation, and this conversation we have to think about the Bowie Grice, how he described the principles in order to guide their conversation. So, in order to make their communicative efforts effective, they have to understand that these maxims or these pillars will make your conversation effective, and maybe they will totally listen to you because you have simple style that you attract their attention. And that's how you can check out the book in page number 142. There are four main maxims, and the four main maxims we have to talk about quantity. And the quantity, you have to be very informative. You talk about the information that is to the context. Number two, quality. When you talk, try to talk about the truth, something truth. Don't jump to other topics here and there, and don't distract your hearer. Relevance. What you say, it's relevant to what people say. So if speaker A say something you have or something related to traveling, speaker B, which is the hearer, should respond back to something relevant to the traveling topic. And then last we have manner or maxim of manner, in which they say it to be clear. Be clear, don't use ambiguity style or make a confusion for those who listen to you. And then here we have the first one, maxim of quantity. When we talk about maxim of quantity, you have to think about two types. The first, or the first part or two parts for the quantity. Make your contribution as informative as required. It means say whatever you like to say or you like to share within the conversation as required. And number two, do not or don't make your contribution more informative than is required. It means don't try to exaggerate something, because people also will not like that style, and they will think that you are trying maybe to show ego or to let them engage with you, even they are becoming bored. They feel bored, or your conversation is very boring for their attention. They are not interested anymore, and that's the quantity. For the quality, we have also 2 points, which is relatively connected to quality. Number one here, do not say what you believe to be false. So uh, don't don't try to say what is false and what is right, because sometimes people think when they speak they are always accurate or correct. Do not say that for which you lack evidence. So if you don't have a proof, don't use the statement. When you talk, try to bring kind of proof, evidence, like statistics or saying exact information many people can share you. That's the quality of your speaking. Number three, maxim of relation. And here you have to be relevant. Make sure that all the information you provide is relevant to the current exchange. Omit irrelevant information. And that's how you are always connected to the speakers. When you talk, what they are talking about, or you share them the same idea, they will extend the conversation for long, and you can control it as long as you can. That's a way for being relevant in any conversation. When you are listening carefully, the others will listen to you, unless if someone who just spoil it or blow it up somehow. You can find these kind of people. Last, we have maxims of manner. When we talk about the manners, we have to be perspicuous. It means you have to be clear. You have to be clear about your talking, about your expression. That's how people will feel comfortable being around you, surrounding you. Number two, avoid obscurity of expression. Sometimes you are trying to say kind of like a new expression or fragment expression. No one can think exactly what do you mean. Avoid ambiguity. Don't be vague. That person who always will use tricky sentences. Be brief. Try to summarize what you are looking for. Don't try to make the conversation long for even nothing. So don't try to just do blah 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 talking without any standard point. And last, be orderly. Make the order of your speaking, like when you use the orders like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or saying instead of it first, second, third, fourth. So people here, they find the logic and rational speaking about your idea, and no one will interfere you. And that's the point for maxims. Um, we have here something again we need to remind you. There is inference or inferring, and inferring here is connecting prior knowledge to context-based information to create meaning beyond what is directly stated. So you have prior knowledge of something, and in the conversation you try to say it beyond what is directly stated. Inferring is also to conclude, to guess, and to understand situation after observation. How? When we mention the inferring, it means you are here uh, think or guess about what the situation is. Let's say that you are moving or driving in a highway, and suddenly you find pieces of glasses, and the maybe one tree is already fell down. So what is your thought here about the inferring, or how you deduce or understand what's going on here? In the previous time you will think about an accident. So uh, you suppose that there is an accident, and here why? Because pieces of glasses in the ground, and plus maybe one tree is broken. That's how we can guess about what's going on, and that's what we call it inferring. So prior knowledge plus the guess or the guessing about what is the situation that we observed. And inference here, it is the conclusion you draw. So after inferring, there is inference. That's the general what we call concept about deducing or getting what you have in your prior knowledge. And here the final conclusion you draw because you observe something. Here example again, you may observe that a person is running from a shop that may cause you to infer that he robbed it. So somebody steals something from the shop because he is already running. Why he's running? We use our prior knowledge to figure out what happened, and here we think, oh, he's like a robber, or he's stealing something, robbed something from the shop. It is easy to infer incorrectly, so we need to get all the facts. That's how we say it or something about the maxim. We have to think about all the fact. That's how we can be informative. Also, we have to describe the situation as relevant. That's how people will think about you and about your conversation. We have here types of implicature. So we finish from maxim of or Girce maxim. We have here types of implicature. We have generalized conversational implicature, and in generalized we have to understand when somebody say John has the most of the documents, the implicature here that we understand from that statement, John doesn't have all of the documents. So if I say most of the document doesn't mean all, and here we put the implicature. We answer the implicature that John doesn't have all the documents. Number two, conventional implicature are part of the conventional meaning of a word or construction. This means that they are not context dependent or pragmatically explainable. So conventional implicatures are part of conventional meaning, and here you have to understand that it's not context dependent. That's in generalized conversation it's context dependent, but here in conventional it's not context dependent. That's why they say it's a starting point for pragmatics. Example, part passed the test, even part passes. So the word even, it means part was among the least likely to pass the test. He has zero luck to pass it, but he passed. So if you see here, when we write that kind of what we call CI means conventional implicature, unlike the implicature here, we write the full word, but here because we save the time we say conventional implicature. Part was among the least likely to pass the test. Last here in case of slides we say distinguishing features of conversational implicature. How to distinguish? Conversational implicature are calculable, that is capable of being worked out on the basis. So we can calculate it from what? The literal meaning of the utterance, whether he used the literal meaning or there is an irony, there is figurative of a sense, or he is totally clear. So that's the literal meaning, and then we use the cooperative principle and its maxims. So we check the conversation based on the maxims, and then we look at the context of the utterance as a whole. We check the whole context, and then we check our background knowledge. We compare these facts, or we just connected these facts with our background or the knowledge that we have with the real current conversation. And last, the assumption of I and IV are available to both participants of the exchange. It means the background is already there for the participants, and the literal meaning is already there for the listeners. But what they have to do, how to think about maxims and how to think about the context as a whole for the utterance. So people, when they realize the whole context, when they listen, let's say, to a symposium, they will compare and they will think about what they know or what they knew before and what they have known at the moment. And conversational implications are also indeterminate. It means sometimes multiple interpretations are possible. There is no one acceptance meaning or intentional meaning, because so many people or so many participants will share their thought about the possible interpretations for given utterance in a particular context. That's how we deal with what we call the distinguishing features. If I ask you about distinguishing features of conversational implicature, you will tell me they are 5. So we have 5, and the last one, the fifth one, it's about telling you that 1 and 4 is available to both participants of the exchange. That's the last one, is just about the assumption which is existed. I need to move to your own book to remind you with something. So here you have unit 3 implicature. So Girce theory of implicature, you can look at, sometimes we mean more than we say. Here is an example. You can read it somehow with your colleague. Next we have conversational implicature, and here we have different examples. As we say, like here one example, can you tell me where is the post, or where the post office is? And here the stranger say, I'm stranger here myself, but it happened that I have just come from the post office, so I think I can help you. Here the stranger implicature become what? Become more cooperative, like he shared what he knew already after he rejected. Girce maxim of conversation, as I said, that Paul Girce, he is the first who started this knowledge or this science. We have here also cooperative principle, as we mentioned. It is accepted purpose, direction of the talk exchange. And maxim, we have one, quality, quantity, and we have relation and manner. So we have all of this. You have to memorize it. It's very, very important, and that's the book in front of you in case you didn't know the slides from where it comes. And here no need to read this because it's just for clearance. Then we have here the next page. It talks about other examples, like here, I am out of petrol, there is a garage. So the meaning here, somebody is saying something related to telling others that where are you, and it means he's looking for a garage or service for the station around the corner. Where does C live? Somewhere in the south of France. So we here understand that C is maybe a person who is well known, and we need to check out who is C here. War is war, boys will be boys. And in number 12, you can see as a floating maxim of quantity, since their semantic content is uninformative. So here there is something against the maxim of quantity. Why? Because we didn't know where is exactly that sentence or what it means. And to continue in the next one, like we have here Vaughan, Ventil, consider question of whether Girce cooperative principle and maxim hold for all language. Of course, differences in culture, lexical distinctions will lead to difference in the specific implicatures which arise, since these are calculated in light of everything in the common ground between speaker and hearer. So always we have speaker and we have hearer. If we have one, that will not be a conversation. Types of implicature, we say generalized conversation, and sometimes they divide it in particularized and generalized. But here we need to think about One example like here, she gave him the key and he opened the door. It means the implication, he gave him or she gave him the key and after that he opened the door. That's how we think about the sequence. And in the next page we have a maximum of a quantity also motivates the implicature. Motivates, I walked into a house. Implicature, the house wasn't my house. I walked into a house. It's not my house because I didn't know. It looks like I'm discovering the house, and that's how we give the implicature. Conventional implicature, that's the last that I want to talk about here. You can think about Girce, identify another type which is little, like it has no information, and here it's part of conventional meaning of a word or construction. Distinguishing features of conversational application, that's the last. It here we can say something related to features, the features that we need to let you look at it. When we say the water must be warm by now, if not boiling, the water must be warm by now, it means if not cold. We think about two options, if not boiling or if not cold, and that's the implicature that it's hidden here. We think about it by our guessing. And last, how to tell kind of inference. We say kind of inference, it's not part of this class, but you can look at them quickly and find the thing like stated, statement. Later on I will try to explain to you in general about the presupposition, about the statement, how it looks like, and we need to do little discussion about identifying the types of inference, whether it's stated, inferred, stated, inferred, and here this discussion will be really fruitful later on in our Zoom class. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you later.